The eye of the storm isn't empty. That's the first thing they don't tell you in training. They teach you about wind speeds, pressure drops, rotation signatures on Doppler radar. But they never mention that when you stare into that swirling darkness long enough, something stares back. My name is Miller, and I've been chasing storms across the Great Plains for 12 years. I drive a reinforced Ford F-350s we call the Iron Lung. Steel plating, roll cage, and enough communications equipment to contact NASA if I wanted to. But all that gear won't protect you from what I'm about to tell you. This is the first entry in what I'm calling the Night Shift Archives. Me and my partner Barnaby, we've decided to document the jobs that most people won't take. The isolated work, the dangerous assignments, the places where normal employment rules don't apply and stranger protocols keep you alive. See, the National Weather Service has their official protocols. Then there are the 3 rules that veteran spotters pass down in whispers at truck stops and weather conferences. Rules that aren't written in any manual, rules that keep you alive when the wind starts speaking in tongues. The Iron Lungs cab is our mobile office. Worn leather seats that smell like coffee and diesel fuel. Dashboard covered in radar screens casting everything in that familiar green glow. CB radio mounted overhead, always crackling with chatter from other spotters scattered across Tornado Alley. And in the passenger seat, snoring softly despite the chaos outside, is my partner Barnaby. Barnaby's a 12-year-old golden retriever with graying fur around his muzzle and the kind of calm that only comes from a lifetime of riding shotgun through supercells. Found him as a pup outside a destroyed farmhouse after an EF-4 tore through Kansas. The family never came back to claim him, so he became mine. Or maybe I became his. Right now he's curled up with his favorite chew toy, a rubber tornado that squeaks when he bites it. The irony isn't lost on me. While we're out here tracking nature's most violent phenomena, Barnaby treats it all like background noise. He's got better instincts than any piece of equipment I've ever used. When Barnaby gets nervous, that's when you know the danger is real. Which brings me to rule number 1. If the radio static starts to form words, cut the power immediately. It happened 3 seasons ago, chasing a supercell near Dodge City. The storm was a monster. Anvil cloud stretching 50 miles across, lightning strobing like a broken fluorescent bulb. We were parked on a hill about 2 miles out, watching the mesocyclone rotate when the CB radio started acting up. At first it was just normal static, white noise mixed with fragments of other spotters' transmissions. Rotation visible, debris cloud confirm, the usual chatter that fills the airwaves during severe weather events. But then the static began to change. It started as a low murmur underneath the white noise, like voices talking in another room. I adjusted the squelch, thinking it was interference from a distant repeater. But the voices got clearer, and they weren't speaking English. They were laughing, not the kind of laughter you hear at a comedy show. This was different, hollow, echoing, like the sound was coming from somewhere very far away or very deep underground. And there were dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all laughing in perfect unison. Barnaby's head snapped up from his nap. His ears went flat against his skull, and he started that low growl that meant serious trouble. Not the playful growl he makes when squirrels run past the truck. This was the sound he made right before that EF-3 changed direction without warning last spring. The laughter was getting louder, more distinct. I could make out individual voices now, men, women, children, all laughing at some cosmic joke we weren't in on. And underneath it all, barely audible, was something else, whispering, words I couldn't quite make out, but they made my skin crawl. I reached for the volume knob to turn it down, but my hand froze when I heard my own voice coming through the speaker. It was me, laughing along with the chorus. But I wasn't laughing. I was sitting there with my mouth clamped shut, cold sweat running down my spine, listening to my own voice echo back from somewhere inside the storm. That's when I remembered what old Pete Kowalski told me at a spotter convention in Oklahoma City. Pete had been chasing storms since before Doppler radar was invented. Grizzled old-timer with stories that made your hair stand on end. He'd pulled me aside after a few too many beers and shared the 3 rules that had kept him alive for 40 years. If the radio static starts to form words, he'd said, cut the power immediately. Don't try to listen. Don't try to understand. Just kill it. I grabbed the power cable and yanked it straight out of the radio. The laughter cut off instantly, leaving only the sound of rain hammering the roof and my own ragged breathing. Barnaby stopped growling but kept his eyes fixed on the silent radio, hackles still raised. The storm passed without incident after that. No tornado touched down. But I'll never forget the sound of my own laughter coming from inside that static, like some part of me was already trapped in the storm, calling back to the rest. Rule number 2 is harder to explain, but just as important. Never trust a lightning flash that casts no shadow. Lightning illuminates everything. That's basic physics. When electricity arcs between cloud and ground, it creates one of the brightest lights in nature. Bright enough to read by, bright enough to temporarily blind you if you're looking directly at it. And bright light always creates shadows. Always, except when it doesn't. We were tracking a supercell near Liberal, Kansas, when we first encountered this phenomenon. The storm was textbook perfect. Classic supercell structure with a well-defined mesocyclone. Barnaby was alert but calm, watching the lightning show through the windshield like it was his personal fireworks display. The lightning was constant. Cloud to cloud, cloud to ground, spider webs of electricity dancing across the sky. Each flash lit up the landscape like daylight, throwing sharp shadows from fence posts, power lines, even the rain itself. Then we saw a flash that was different. It came from directly overhead, brighter than any lightning I'd ever seen. Bright enough that I instinctively closed my eyes and threw my hand up to shield my face. But when I opened them, everything was wrong. The flash had illuminated the clouds above perfectly. I could see every detail of the storm structure, every wisp and curl of the rotating mesocyclone. But the ground remained in complete darkness, not just dim, pitch black, like the light was only shining upward, leaving everything below in absolute shadow. I looked at my hands on the steering wheel. In that impossible light, they cast no shadow on the dashboard. The radio antenna on the hood, the fence posts along the road, even Barnaby sitting right next to me, nothing cast a shadow. It was like the light was coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. Barnaby started whimpering and pressed himself against the passenger door as far from the windshield as he could get. The radar screen was going crazy, showing clear skies directly above us, while my eyes were seeing the most intense storm activity of my career. That's when I realized what was happening. Something was taking pictures. The thought hit me like a physical blow. That wasn't lightning. It was a camera flash. Something massive, something hidden in the clouds was photographing us, documenting us, and whatever it was, it existed in a way that normal light couldn't touch. I heard it then, a sound like the world's largest camera shutter clicking shut. The impossible light faded and normal lightning resumed, casting proper shadows across the rain-soaked landscape. But the damage was done. We'd been seen, cataloged, filed away in some cosmic database of things that shouldn't be where they are. The radar showed the storm moving away, but we sat there for another hour, engine running, watching the sky. Barnaby eventually relaxed and went back to his nap. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we were still being watched, that somewhere in those clouds, something was reviewing the photographs it had taken, studying our faces, learning our patterns. That brings me to rule number 3, the most important rule, the one that saved our lives just last month. If the tornado blinks, stop the truck and close your eyes. We were chasing what would later be classified as an EF5 wedge tornado near Moore, Oklahoma. A monster storm, nearly 2 miles wide at the base, with winds exceeding 200 miles per hour. The kind of tornado that erases entire neighborhoods and leaves scars on the landscape that last for generations. I was maintaining a safe distance about 3 miles out, using binoculars to observe the storm's behavior. Barnaby was unusually restless, pacing back and forth across the bench seat, whining softly. He kept looking at me with those expressive brown eyes like he was trying to tell me something important. Through the binoculars, the tornado was a thing of terrible beauty, a perfect cone of destruction, dark as midnight against the green-tinged sky. Debris swirled around its perimeter, pieces of houses, cars, trees, entire lives torn apart and flung into the air. But as I watched, something changed. The tornado began to contract, not dissipating, contracting, like a muscle flexing or a pupil adjusting to light. The debris cloud compressed, became more focused, and for just a moment, the chaos organized itself into something that looked almost intentional. That's when we saw it blink. The center of the tornado, the eye that should have been empty space, contracted and expanded like a massive eyelid closing and opening. In that instant of closure, I glimpsed something that my mind still refuses to fully process. Something vast and ancient and aware, looking back at us through the storm. The radio crackled to life, even though I disconnected the power cable after the incident near Dodge City. Static filled the cab, but this time there was no laughter, just a voice, clear as day, speaking directly to me. I slammed on the brakes so hard that Barnaby tumbled off the seat. My hands were shaking as I reached for him, pulling him close to my chest. The voice on the radio continued, calm and conversational, like we were old friends catching up. I squeezed my eyes shut and held Barnaby tight. He was trembling, but he pressed against me, offering what comfort he could. Outside, the wind was getting stronger. The truck started to rock on its suspension.
We know your patterns, your roots, your safe distances. We know about Barnaby. Such a good dog. Someone, it would be a shame if something happened to him.
The iron lung was built to withstand EF3 winds, but this was something else entirely. We were being lifted, actually lifted off the ground, I could feel the tires losing contact with the asphalt. But I kept my eyes closed, kept holding Barnaby, and whispered every prayer I could remember from childhood.
Look at us, Miller. Open your eyes and see what you've been chasing all these years.
The voice was getting louder, more insistent. The static was building to a crescendo that made my ears ring, but I remembered Pete Kowalski's words, spoken in that dim bar in Oklahoma City. If the tornado blinks, stop the truck and close your eyes. Don't look. No matter what it says, no matter what it promises, don't look. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The wind died. The radio went silent. The truck settled back onto the road with a gentle thump. I could hear normal sounds again. Rain pattering on the roof, Barnaby's breathing, my own heartbeat gradually slowing. I waited another 5 minutes before opening my eyes. The tornado was gone. Not dissipated, gone. The sky was clear except for a few scattered clouds, and the only evidence of the storm was the debris scattered across the fields and the lingering smell of ozone in the air. That was 3 weeks ago. The season's winding down now, and Barnaby and I have made a decision. The plains have gotten too dangerous, too aware. Whatever's living in these storms, it knows us now, knows our truck, our patterns, our weaknesses. But we're not done with the night shift. There are other jobs out there, other places where normal people fear to tread, other rules that keep you alive when reality stops making sense. We've accepted a new position as fire lookouts in a national park out west. Different kind of danger, different kind of isolation. The pay's not as good as storm spotting, but it'll give us time to document what we've learned. Just me and Barnaby in a tower above the tree line, watching for smoke instead of rotation. They sent us the training manual yesterday. Standard stuff mostly. Radio protocols, fire behavior, evacuation procedures. But tucked in the back, almost like an afterthought, was a section titled Special Protocols for Anomalous Smoke Patterns. 4 rules, handwritten in the margin like someone had added them after the manual was printed. We haven't read them yet. Part of me wants to throw the whole manual away and find a nice, boring office job somewhere. But I know we won't. This is what we do, what we are. And Barnaby's already excited about the move. His tail wags every time I mention mountains. Maybe the high country will be different. Maybe whatever lives in the storms can't follow us up there. Maybe we'll finally find a place where the only thing watching us is the sun and stars. But we're keeping those 3 rules close just in case. And we're writing down everything that happens to us so other night shift workers will know what they're really dealing with. The storms aren't just weather, there's something else. Something that's been here longer than we have, hiding in the wind and rain and lightning. And now that they know we can see them, I don't think they're going to let us ignore them much longer. Come on, Barnaby, let's go find those mountains. But as we drive away, I can't shake the feeling that something's following us in the rearview mirror. Something that looks like storm clouds but moves with purpose. Something that blinks. And somewhere in the static of the radio, I swear I can hear my own voice laughing along with the chorus calling back from inside the storm. The eye of the storm isn't empty. And now it knows our names. If you find yourself chasing storms, seeking answers in the chaos of nature, or feeling like the weather itself is watching you back, remember, you're not paranoid. You're aware. The most dangerous rules aren't just supernatural warnings whispered by veteran storm spotters in Oklahoma truck stops. They're the classified protocols that govern billion-dollar weather modification programs, the corporate policies that treat natural disasters as profitable opportunities, and the government directives that hide the truth about what's really causing these unprecedented storm patterns. But atmospheric manipulation isn't the only place where strange rules guard terrifying truths. Sometimes, the most dangerous instructions come from the most secure places on Earth. Underground bunkers, built 300 feet below ground, reinforced with military-grade steel, designed to shelter tech billionaires and oil executives from the very disasters they helped create. Next week, Barnaby and I descend into our next assignment, installing ventilation systems in a $50 million survival complex beneath Silicon Valley. The client pays in cryptocurrency, demands complete anonymity, and insists on modifications that make no sense for nuclear fallout protection. But when we discover a laminated list of rules hidden behind the air filtration unit, everything becomes clear. Rule number 1. The emergency lockdown isn't activated by external threats. It's triggered when something tries to leave. Subscribe to the Night Shift and hit that notification bell for more bone-chilling tales of the jobs no one else wants. Next week, we clock in for I Build Doomsday Bunkers for Billionaires. I found a list of rules inside. Pull up a chair, put on your headphones, and pet the dog. Just don't look out the window.